Hello and welcome to another little meditation on nostalgia. I'm going to try to make the point today that nostalgia is simple-mindedness. And before I go back to Ecclesiastes 7, I want to read what Proverbs 9 says to the simple-minded people. Wisdom has built her house, she has set up its 7 pillars. She has prepared her meat and mixed her wine. She has also set her table. She has sent out her servants, and she calls from the highest point of the city. And this is the point. Let all who are simple come to my house. Let those who have no sense, to those who have no sense, she says, come, eat my food and drink the wine I have mixed. Leave your simple ways and you will live. Walk in the way of insight. So in Proverbs, the lack of wisdom is simple-mindedness. And according to Proverbs 9, the simple-minded person is in an unstable condition. They can go either way. The simple person could enter the house of wisdom. If they do that, he will learn the ways of righteousness and leave his simple-mindedness behind. But the simple-minded might enter the house of folly, and there he'll be confirmed in his ignorance, and he will learn the self-destructive habits of sin. So being simple is a bit dangerous. After all, we do live in a world full of temptation and potential disaster, and the simple person is like the blind man wandering in a minefield. Ruin is only a step away for the simple-minded. Okay, now let's turn to Ecclesiastes 7 again. Verse 10. Do not say, why were the old days better than these? For it is not wise to ask such questions. Now, if you're not wise, you're in one of two conditions. You're either simple or you're wicked. And I don't think it's wicked to ask that question, why were the old days better than these? But I think it is silly, or it is simple-minded. In other words, the nostalgic person lacks wisdom, not in the sense of being a fool, a senseless sinner, but in the sense of being a simple-minded person likely to ask a silly question like, why were the old days better than these? So why then am I saying nostalgia is simple-minded or silly? Well, mainly because no one has any real objective knowledge of the present or the past. We don't really know what the old days were like, and we don't really know what these days are like. Let me ask, what do you know about the old days? Well, they were good for some people some of the time, I'm sure. But we do have to rely on our memories, and human memory is notoriously unreliable and selective, and different people could have radically different memories of the same past. In fact, it's entirely possible that your happiest day of your life could have been the moment of my greatest misery, or indeed the other way around. Who's to say which was a good day? And also, what do we know about the present day? Almost nothing. Now, even if you listened to every news bulletin and read every newspaper, you would only know about the topics which currently interest journalists, a very small range of matters. They're a very short-sighted bunch of lemmings running after the same stories, in my opinion. And your own observations, your own experiences are not objective. They're a microscopic portion of all that is happening right now. And as Ecclesiastes loves to remind us, we have no idea what God is cooking up. We do not know what God is doing in the present tense. That's why I always smile inwardly when I hear a clever young preacher tell me confidently what God is doing today. It's usually young preachers who say that. Old preachers learn wisdom, or they become worse. But I don't know what God is doing today, and neither do they. So, the question being asked, why were the old days better than these, includes three very simple errors. Error one, you don't know what the old days were really like. Error two, you don't know what these days are really like. Error three, you are not wise enough to tell the difference, and neither am I. We cannot make a useful comparison between the old days and the new days. Wise people don't ask questions like that because they don't make those silly mistakes. There's a legend that the Delphic oracle proclaimed Socrates to be the wisest man of his generation. And his response was, "But I don't know anything." And then he came to the conclusion that he must be the wisest man because of all people, he was the only one who was truly aware of the depth of his own ignorance. Yeah, I'm with Socrates on this. We are all more ignorant than we realize. So I want to sort of make a little diversion now into using our critical abilities. God has given us the ability to make value judgments in the modern language. So what are we to make value judgments about? Well, they're not to be about the old days versus the current days. Our value judgments are meant to, so that we could ourselves make value judgments about our own responsibilities, the things that we have to do, our own behavior. We are meant to be judging ourselves. And we owe that to God. We owe it to Him to use this ability to judge so that we live good and holy lives because we're making good and holy judgment calls every day. But God did not give you the ability to judge other people. If you get into the habit of judging people, you're almost certain to become a hypocrite. A hypocrite is somebody who judges other people by a different standard than the one he lives by. He did not give you the ability to judge between different groups of people. If you start doing that, you will become a bigot or a racist. God did not give you the ability then to judge between different periods of time. If you do that, you'll sink into a silly nostalgia, or you might go the other way and become one of those really irritating people who think that we've got nothing to learn from the past because we've all made such brilliant progress in the present, which I think is probably even sillier than nostalgia. Progressivism and nostalgia are two equally unnecessary errors. So, it's not wise. Actually, there's a very large category of questions that it's not wise to ask, but I don't have time to go into that. And I want to finish on a positive note. I want to go back where I go so often, which is to Romans 12, verse 2. This is what it says. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. So that's how you're meant to use your critical faculty, your ability to make judgment calls. Don't be conformed to the way other people think. Be transformed. Let the Holy Spirit renew your mind, and then test and approve what God's will is for you, for your family, for your church, for your work, for whatever is your area that you will answer to God for. And as for the rest, leave it out. You're not clever enough to make all those other judgment calls. Anyway, God has shown you what is good. Now we just have to do it. God bless you, and see you again. Bye for now.